Hi, my name is Maria and I work as a mental health navigator for Tameside, Oldham and Glossop Mind. Okay, so coming from a South Asian household myself, obviously having the knowledge that I have got about mental health, I've kind of over the years found out that the main issue about mental health and South Asians, like that culture, is the lack of awareness, the accessibility, the availability and the education that's out there. A lot of the times there's common issues like language barriers, there's stigmas and stereotypes which are kind of misunderstood. What might be culturally normal in a westernized culture is not when it comes to a South Asian culture. And I think there's a lot of conflict being a South Asian in a westernized society and trying to uplift both them kind of cultures at the same time, which causes complex kind of relationships. I personally think there's little steps that we can take in terms of, as mentioned before, greeting someone which is, you know, culturally acceptable in their kind of culture. So rather than just saying hello to your clients, maybe saying assalamu alaikum, it just means peace be upon you. And, you know, it's just one of those that you've kind of understood they're from this background, especially if you've got like client notes and you know like they're from a certain background. Obviously make sure it's acceptable and appropriate, but like I said, that therapeutic rapport starts from, you know, the first kind of interaction you have. So like little things like that. But other than that, I think actually making it easily accessible. A lot of the times you'll find in a South Asian culture, in a nutshell kind of thing, it is the female is primarily there to be like your housewife, to be, you know, there to look after children and stuff like that, whereas a male is a dominant figure and he's a breadwinner. And often in between that you get stuff where it's like financial issues, where it's like, you know, being kind of treated in that. However, normally, because you're from a South Asian culture and the male is like the breadwinner, for example, they are always going to be one of those that have a lead kind of take on the financial side. Whereas if you looked at it from a westernized society, it's more of like an equality kind of based scenario. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be. You'll find a lot of South Asian women, as myself, that actually work now and are able to kind of look after their own financial kind of sides of stuff, but it was like quite a prominent issue at one point. And to be able to understand that, so as when you are like providing any sort of support and therapy, you are kind of looking at stuff like that and not going to mislead someone because of not having that cultural understanding. So to actually have like continued learning and like training for people that are in a profession and for them to kind of understand the cultural differences, that's very important. But just for like the general public, I know I've seen a lot of stuff like in specific places, like for example going to a GP, because it's more of a medical kind of sector, you're there for a reason, so you would have like kind of leaflets and posters there, but to actually sometimes avoid places like that and put them into like maybe, you know, on a bus as someone's kind of looking at it, because a lot of the times, because the whole topic of mental health is so misunderstood, because there's a lack of education, a lot of the times there's this tendency of secrecy that's involved, in terms of people are unsure of how to kind of bring light to it, are actually unsure of if they are being mistreated because there's no education around it. And there's a lot of the times I find, while I was studying, you'd find that people were like going through domestic violence kind of stuff, domestic abuse, but unable to speak about it because they didn't know that it was, you know, emotional abuse is actually domestic violence. And they didn't even know how to go about it. And when they went to a GP, they were accompanied by someone because there's a language barrier. So are you able to kind of speak about it? So maybe having signs of like, you know, maybe like, like a gesture that you can kind of show someone. And because the work environment at a retail company is aware that this is actually a mental health kind of sign, they can do something about it before it gets to like quite a triggering and, you know, warning kind of situation. So to have that, I know, like I mentioned before, Tog Mind actually have leaflets again that are in different languages to kind of counteract that language barrier. So the biggest thing I'd like to say in terms of what we can do as a profession, or what other people can do as, whether it's mental health based professions or like I said, retail or something, is to kind of advertise on posters, but not just in English, in a common language within South Asian cultures, to have kind of, wellbeing sessions in certain workplaces where it's touched upon if you've got clients that are like from a different cultural background, to kind of continue that learning. So the accessibility, the availability, the kind of education, that should be like very heavily influenced, and a continuous kind of journey in every situation you're kind of in. So yeah, not just having posters in GPs, but like on buses, or in bus stops, or as you're walking by, or in any kind of work profession. It just makes it available to anyone walking past in general public, but also your workplace, and it kind of brings about the equality and diversity that every kind of company, no matter what sector you're working in, should kind of promote anyway. That you look at these things and value these things, and not only is that a good thing for employees that you're hiring, but it looks good on the employer side, and it's good on the client relationship, because a lot of the times we see mental health within South Asian communities which is misled, misunderstood, completely disregarded. And a lot of it is bringing back down to the fact that the client, or the person in the situation, doesn't know how to go about it, in terms of they're not aware about whether they're being mistreated. They don't know how to access anything. Mm-hmm. A lot of places I know will say you'll get free counselling sessions if you got like something going on at home, or work is being too much, but not a lot of people will opt for that, because of the fact that they don't realise what that can do for them, or they don't know how to actually access it. So again, it just brings us back down to the fact that we should look at the accessibility, especially when it comes to South Asian cultures, the availability and like the education around it. But for us to do that, we need an understanding of the culture. What is a stereotype in this culture? What's a stigma in this culture? Are they going to easily be able to access this, even if the poster's right in front of them? So these kind of little nuts and cracks need to be kind of filled before we can, because it's a two-way thing. As a profession, you can kind of promote, mental health, cultural competent therapy. Any profession can turn around and say, we've got therapists that are from different backgrounds, and you'll be more understood. However, sometimes we need to understand the fact that the client that's going to access this also needs a way in which they can easily do it. So it's that gap that needs to be bridged.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Excellent. Some really good points there, some really good points and observations, and I particularly like what you're saying around that actually, even with a really good campaign and with translated materials, that's still not enough. We need to all collectively as a society be doing a lot more.
Yeah.
Continued learning and development, and also picking up on what you'd said as well around like sometimes in terms of encouraging people to access support, particularly from the South Asian community. Actually, sometimes it's about talking to them about the positive impact that the therapeutic support will have, rather than just saying to them, hey, did you know that you can access therapeutic support?
Exactly, yeah.
You can access counselling, because actually we come back to interpretation or misinterpretation, don't we? That one person will think one thing of counselling, somebody else will think something else of counselling, and actually the bigger picture at play is, what does the counselling lead to?
Exactly.
What's the end result? What's the positive impact on the individual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.